Creator of Wikileaks, is an activist who has dedicated his life to exposing the lies and corruption of some of the most powerful governments on Earth. For over a decade, he's also been relentlessly hunted by them. Assange is a controversial figure. Some vilify him as an enemy of the state.
Is he a criminal or is he a journalist?
No, he's definitely a criminal.
Others hail him as a champion of transparency and free speech.
Julian Assange is the hero of our time.
Indeed, he's been honoured with countless prestigious journalism awards. Yet he languishes in prison under horrendous conditions, facing the paradox that the very reasons he earned these accolades are also what led to his incarceration. It's hard for the average person to know what to think about Assange because for over a decade, his actions have been shrouded in a fog of conflicting narratives and media portrayals. And that is by design.
This is the public narrative that has been spread in the media for 10 years, and no one has been able to actually see how much deception there is.
Nils Melzer, UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, explained in the recent film Ithaca that there is a complex web of misinformation surrounding Assange intended to smear him, and the reason for this has everything to do with what Assange leaked to the world.
One of the most notorious and controversial figures in custody.
Because he published the truth.
There are powerful people who want to neutralize Assange's influence by making an example of him.
Extraditions are 99% politics and 1% law. It's entirely the political climate around the case that decides the outcome, and that is shaped by the media. And for many years, there was a climate that was deliberately created through false stories, through smears, through relentless character attacks on Julian to try to reduce that support and make it more likely to successfully extradite him to the United States.
In the film Ithaca, Stella Assange, Julian's wife and former legal counsel, explained that extraditing Assange to the US would make him the first publisher in history to be charged under the Espionage Act.
It looks as though what journalists do for a living is seen to be a criminal act.
What's at stake? If he goes down, so will journalism.
At a recent screening of Ithaca, I interviewed Assange's father and brother about the misinformation surrounding Julian's situation and why this case is so important.
There is no America without a free press. There's no free press without freeing Julian Assange.
In this video, we'll expose 6 lies about Assange that have been deliberately used to distract us from what is one of the most important precedent-setting cases for freedom of speech of our generation. If there's one thing that I want you to take away from this, it's that most of what you think you know about Assange is false. Let's start by recapping a little history about who Julian Assange is and why he's currently locked up. The indictments against Assange are all related to the publication of documents in 2010 concerning the Iraq and Afghanistan wars.
The US government is trying to extradite this guy and put him in prison for the rest of his life for the best work that Wikileaks ever did, that has won awards in every country basically around the planet, including the United States. Which is the Iraq and Afghanistan war logs, right? Detainee records in Guantanamo Bay. Things that are about explicit war crimes and abuses of power.
In 2010, an extensive collection of documents was anonymously uploaded to Wikileaks, later revealed to be from former US intelligence analyst Chelsea Manning. After thorough vetting, Wikileaks began publishing a portion of these materials, starting with a video. But we can't tell you what the video is called, nor what it depicts, because this video platform won't allow us to do so. But here's what we can say about the leaked footage. It featured a US Army helicopter, 2 Reuters journalists, and a bunch of unarmed civilians. But the government had originally told the public that only armed insurgents were involved in the incident that the video filmed.
For years, US officials claimed that the Iraqis had been killed in a firefight. But it was only after Wikileaks published the video 3 years later that the government's narrative unraveled.
The release of this video was a significant moment in the history of investigative reporting and whistleblowing, and demonstrated the power of independent journalism in holding governments and institutions accountable and revealing their lies.
These publications were a game changer. This really opened the eyes of the public to what was going on.
Al Jazeera said in their censored documentary that a military investigation cleared the pilots involved in the attack. The only people who faced any charges were those who leaked and published the video. It turns out the people are still being punished for publishing this video. Then, over the ensuing months, WikiLeaks went on to release the Afghanistan war logs, the Iraq war logs, and Cablegate, which included US diplomatic cables. In total, there were hundreds of thousands of documents.
This particular set of documents is the most extraordinary compendium of war that has ever been released.
The disclosure provides a trove of new evidence on the violence, torture, and suffering that's befallen Iraq since the 2003 US invasion.
It was shocking and eye-opening for the public to get this never-before-granted insight into how war is actually waged.
We estimate that when fully analysed, these logs will bring to the public knowledge more than 15,000 previously unreported civilian deaths.
So let's introduce the first lie that we're told about this, that Assange was responsible for a mass, reckless, unredacted document dump.
The latest release disclosed the names of people, activists, human rights advocates, and dissidents.
Unredacted documents were indeed released to the public, but the truth of how they got there isn't usually talked about. For these 2010 Chelsea Manning leaks, WikiLeaks collaborated closely with several prominent news organisations, such as The Guardian and The New York Times, to analyse and redact sensitive information prior to publication. These media outlets worked in tandem with WikiLeaks to review and contextualise the extensive collection of documents. The goal was not only to ensure that the information reached a broad audience, but also to guarantee accurate and responsible dissemination of the report.
Julian and WikiLeaks worked very hard to redact these documents. This is a sort of misconception, and it's propagated against Julian to make it seem that he's reckless or he's done something wrong.
Assange's brother Gabriel confirmed what I'd already learnt from reading Glenn Greenwald's book No Place to Hide, that WikiLeaks actually put a lot of effort into redacting the Manning documents. So why do people think otherwise? Here's what happened. The original documents were saved in an encrypted file, and that file somehow began to circulate on the internet. It's unclear how it got there, but rumours are that a backup copy of the WikiLeaks file server was stolen by a former disgruntled employee. This probably would have been fine because the file was encrypted anyway, except then...
Two of the Guardian journalists that were working on the State Department cable's release had published a book, and in that book these two idiot journalists put the passphrase as a chapter heading.
This passphrase unlocked the encrypted file containing the original unredacted documents.
Once Julian realised this, he rang the State Department and said, look, we want to work with you to help you to stop these documents from going out.
And who would be releasing these cables? Is this WikiLeaks?
No, we would not be releasing them. We are doing our usual thing of continuing on with our redaction plan.
Assange encouraged the State Department to take down rogue copies of the file and to warn anyone who might be mentioned in the cables that their names were about to be released. But the State Department refused to help. Eventually, Cryptome, an online repository for leaked documents focusing on national security, intelligence, and government secrecy, published the complete set of unredacted cables.
It wasn't through any fault of Julian's that these files were published. It was actually these Guardian journalists.
WikiLeaks called the Guardian's actions gross negligence or malice and a violation of their confidentiality agreement with the Guardian. Meanwhile, the Guardian shirked any responsibility for their own role in the leak and claimed that they thought the passphrase was temporary and unimportant. But as Wired reported at the time, crypto keys last forever, so the Guardian clearly should have treated the key as highly sensitive for the foreseeable future. After the documents were already in the wild, WikiLeaks published a copy. Journalists from The Guardian and Cryptome have not faced criticism for the events. Instead, it's Julian Assange that suffered damage to his reputation. This misinformation around these unredacted document dumps was no doubt fueled by mainstream coverage like this. The next lie we hear constantly is that people were hurt by the release of documents.
There is nothing laudable about endangering innocent people.
Human rights organizations condemn the disclosures. saying they could put sources at risk.
It's possible people were hurt, but that's not what official investigations into the matter have found.
Obama set up a special group to try and find anyone who was harmed. He spent $6 million looking for somebody who was harmed by Chelsea Manning's leaks. At Chelsea Manning's hearing, the ex-general who was in charge of this investigation admitted under oath that they could not find anybody who'd been harmed by Chelsea Manning's leaks. The prosecution in Julian's hearing even admitted that there was no evidence of anybody being harmed. It's a total fabrication. It's one that has stuck.
Pointing fingers at Julian helps distract from the important information revealed in the leaks themselves.
These executives are responsible for the administration of them. 1 million deaths in Iraq, the destruction of Libya, the destruction of Yemen, the destruction of Afghanistan, 38 million refugees driven out of the Middle East, between 6 and 7 million direct deaths over the entire Middle East as a result of the destruction of these countries. And they say Julian Assange may have caused hurt to people. Staggering.
A third lie we hear is that Assange is a hacker who stole classified information. But if you look at the actual indictments against Assange, it seems they're actually charging him with journalism. The Obama administration actually tried for years to find a way to criminally charge Assange, and ultimately determined that they couldn't.
They gave two reasons. One was Julian Assange is a publisher, he's not a hacker. And there's no way to go after Wikileaks that would not set a precedent against the rest of the press.
In 2013, the Washington Post called this the New York Times problem, saying that if the Justice Department indicted Assange, it would also have to prosecute the New York Times and other news organizations and writers who published classified material, including the Washington Post and Britain's Guardian newspaper. The push to go after Assange stagnated for years. But then Wikileaks published Vault 7, a collection of documents exposing the cyber espionage tools used by the CIA. By this time, the new administration had come into power, and according to a former Trump administration national security official, Wikileaks had become a complete obsession for then director of the CIA, Mike Pompeo, who wanted vengeance on Assange.
The Trump administration wanted to use this case not just as an opportunity to go after Assange, but as an opportunity to go after national security journalism.
The Trump administration reignited the attack against Assange, but then the Biden administration continued it, and they've used the Espionage Act as their weapon, with 17 out of the 18 charges against Assange falling under this archaic law from 1917. The Espionage Act was designed to target spies and saboteurs, not those who seek to inform the public about government activities.
The use of an act which was designed to clamp down on spying against acts of publication in the public interest just seems to me wrong.
This is the first time the Espionage Act has ever been used against a publisher, which is shocking given that it explicitly says in the Constitution, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of the press.
The Constitution of the United States First Amendment is categorical.
By using the Espionage Act against publishers, you've effectively added the caveat of all caveats to the First Amendment, that press is protected unless they want to share information that the government doesn't want revealed, thus completely destroying the whole point of the First Amendment.
That's blatantly unconstitutional.
We want the First Amendment defended.
So despite the fact that the Constitution protects the publishing of secret documents, even if the sources of those documents obtain them through illegal means, counts 1 through 17 against Assange say that his conspiracy to obtain, receive, and disclose national defense information was a criminal act. They go on to explain that as part of this conspiracy, he used a special folder on a cloud Dropbox of Wikileaks to transmit classified records. Using encrypted cloud storage to share documents is what journalists do every day. He used the Jabber online chat service to collaborate with Manning. Journalists talk to their sources via encrypted chat. every day. He took measures to conceal Manning as the source of the disclosure. Journalists protecting their sources is integral to responsible reporting. He encouraged Manning to provide information. Journalists ask for more information from their sources every day. Now, there's one final indictment against Assange, a conspiracy to commit computer intrusion charge. It was originally unveiled alongside a press release from the DOJ titled "WikiLeaks founder charged in computer hacking conspiracy." But if you read the actual indictment, it's not about hacking at all. It's not alleged that Assange broke into any computers to steal documents. What's alleged is that Assange tried to help Manning crack a password hash in an attempt to help her maintain her anonymity. The hash had nothing to do with obtaining classified documents. Manning already had access to all the documents that she would leak and had already been uploading them to WikiLeaks. Cracking the hash was a way to help Manning disguise her identity. So again, even if these allegations against Assange prove true, they would still fall under the scope of journalistic practices rather than hacking, as journalists routinely work with sources to protect their identities. It's an essential part of their profession. But this conspiracy to commit computer intrusion charge is almost a distraction. It was the first and originally the only indictment against Assange, and it might have gotten him a maximum of 5 years in prison if he were found guilty. It's not even clear that he would have been found guilty, because all the talk about the hash was between Manning and an anonymous person on Jabber, and Manning never revealed this person's identity. As this initial charge held no water on its own, it was then superseded by a new 18-count charge, where the DOJ added 17 espionage charges to the mix. It's the espionage charges that would put Assange away for at least 175 years. Let's quickly add in here line number 4, that Assange isn't a real journalist, so freedom of the press doesn't apply here. The argument that the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal are the only legitimate press might have held more water in 2010, but it's 2023. Independent journalists break stories every day, and Assange has literally won at least 26 journalism awards. But someone doesn't need to win awards to be considered legitimate press. So make up your own mind about the whole "he's not a real journalist" narrative. The fifth lie we'll talk about is this idea that Assange can just provide his defense in court, and if he really is a journalist, he'll be safe. But that's not how the Espionage Act works.
The thing about the Espionage Act is that there is no defense to it. So you can't stand in front of a jury and say, "This is why I did it. Please let me tell you about the public interest."
Under the Espionage Act, Assange won't be able to try to justify why he did what he did, argue that he's a journalist or that it was in the public interest. The trial is simply to determine whether or not documents were released. And we already know the answer to that. It's an unequivocal yes. The trial is merely a rubber stamp on a foregone conclusion. On top of that, the answer to the question of whether or not he'll be safe if he's brought to the USA is a clear one. The CIA literally discussed having Assange killed while he was in the Ecuadorian embassy.
The US had plans to abduct or even assassinate Julian Assange.
You're talking about, sending someone, basically the people who were planning to murder them. They want Julian dead. That's the goal.
Does the UK really think Assange will be safe if they hand him over to the US government? The final lie that we're going to cover is why Assange was kicked out of the Ecuadorian embassy. We'll provide the puzzle pieces, and you're welcome to put them together yourself.
There have been reports for some time that Assange was had outlived his welcome there in the embassy. He was skateboarding in the halls and stealing Wi-Fi, and that his cat had been making a mess.
Granted that Assange probably was going stir-crazy, living in a single room for 7 years without sunlight or being able to see a tree. But it's also worth noting that these reports of disruptive behavior only began after a new regime came into power in Ecuador in 2017, led by Lenin Moreno. Some other things also happened at this time. Wikileaks became target number 1 for the CIA after their Vault 7 release, and a new CIA director was sworn in, Mike Pompeo. One of Pompeo's first ever speeches was dedicated to designating Wikileaks as an enemy of the state.
It's time to call out Wikileaks for what it really is:
a non-state hostile intelligence service.
This brought WikiLeaks directly under the CIA's purview by implying that they were a threat to US national security. It was at this time, during Assange's stay at the embassy, that the CIA began actively spying on him, installing hidden cameras and microphones in his living quarters, and he was subject to increasingly hostile conditions, including oppressive isolation and harassment. After 2 years into this new Ecuadorian regime, Ecuador then rescinded Assange's asylum, and the UK police dragged him out of the embassy. What's interesting is that the decision came just a month after the IMF approved billions of dollars to be given to Ecuador.
The Ecuadorians just received a $4.2 billion loan from America last Monday.
Probably unrelated to them immediately handing over Assange, surely. Former Ecuadorian President Correa called Moreno's decision cowardly and said the Ecuadorian government had only done it because WikiLeaks had leaked allegations related to Moreno himself. Once dragged out of the embassy, Assange was put in Belmarsh maximum security prison, regarded as the UK's Guantanamo Bay. He's been there ever since, for 4 years now, awaiting extradition to the US. He's not actually serving any sentence. He's simply waiting through an endless back and forth of appeals with the UK courts to decide whether his extradition to the US will be granted. The judge has had everything he needs to make a decision about the extradition for the past 6 months, yet Assange still languishes in prison. And what's more is the judge actually has no time limit within which he must make a decision. Assange can stay in maximum security prison indefinitely without ever having been found guilty of anything. During this time at Belmarsh, he suffered a stroke and severe mental illness. Both the UK and the US are happily taking their time with the proceedings, because the fact is, as long as Assange is silenced behind bars, they've already won.
They're actually trying to use Assange as a threat against everyone else, not only in the US, but around the world, as an example to frighten people.
This is John Young from Cryptome, who was actually the original publisher of the Unredacted diplomatic cables. But because his platform isn't as widely known as WikiLeaks, no one from the government has even reached out to him, let alone charged him with anything. Assange is their target, because Assange is high profile enough to provide a chilling effect for other journalists who might be tempted to publish documents about the US government. As far as the 18 counts against Assange are concerned,
as far as I could tell, all those apply to me and Cryptome. We publish classified information, secret information. We're only one of dozens of people who are putting out this kind of information.
Daniel Ellsberg, the famous whistleblower who leaked the Pentagon Papers, also confirmed that he was given a copy of the Manning leaks as a backup. If possessing these documents is a crime, as the Espionage Act claims,
I am as guilty in their eyes as Assange. How come they haven't come after me?
In fact, the Espionage Act is so broad that it makes basically anyone guilty.
Anyone who retains a copy of the New York Times, which has the word classified in it, and who fails to turn over that copy to authorities authorized to receive it, is as guilty as I am under the plain language of that act.
Yet Assange is being singled out and made an example of.
He should not face this alone. I think all of those of us who are doing similar kind of work to serve the public should do more than just protest. I think we've got to raise more hell and take more legal action and publish more as our obligation as citizens. We are not doing anything more than exerting our constitutional rights under the First Amendment.
So what can you do?
Get in touch with your representatives, let them know that you care about this case, that you want them to do something.
At the end of the day, Biden isn't going to drop this extradition without considerable political pressure. And one way to apply that pressure is by voicing your concerns to your local representative.
All you've got to do is ring him up and say, look, this is a concern, First Amendment concern, we want the charges dropped.
The Assange saga has been ongoing for 13 years, becoming increasingly entangled in a web of misinformation during that time. Given the vast scope of events that have unfolded over more than a decade, we can't dive into it all in a single video, but I've tried to set the record straight in some select areas. There is still so much more that we could have said. This case represents a critical juncture for the future of press freedom. It doesn't matter whether you like Assange or not, or whether you've bought into the mainstream narratives against him. you should be very worried about the fate of journalism around the world. When powerful individuals can suppress information to protect their interests, we risk entering a chilling world where truth and accountability become casualties. It's time to recognize the stakes at hand and demand an end to this ordeal. Free Assange, and in doing so, protect the future of press freedom.
You, the free press, matter more than you ever did in the last century. I really mean it.